And good Friday evening to you. It was a made-for-TV moment that left Washington and the country stunned. After months of bashing each other relentlessly, President Trump and the mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, meeting at the White House, cordial, even friendly, as they addressed the press. Facing the cameras together in the Oval Office, the two men describing how they've made common cause of improving cost of living for New Yorkers and committing to working together. Take a listen.
I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually.
We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. I think he wants to make it greater than ever before. And if he can, we'll be out there cheering. I'll be cheering for him.
You used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought.
It was a striking change in tone after months of public insults during Mamdani's campaign. Here are just some of those moments.
I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in. Our city is under attack by an authoritarian Trump administration.
I call him my little communist. He's my little communist mayor. It's going to be hard for me as the president to give a lot of money to New York because if you have a communist running New York, all you're doing is wasting the money you're sending there.
If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
Today, the vitriol was gone. President Trump even stepping in to protect Mamdani and help him out with some pointed questions.
He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say
okay.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I'll use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our campaign.
There is a bus that goes...
Well, but I know, but if he flew, that's a lot quicker, too. You know, I mean, he's working very hard. For him to be, that's a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. You know, the plane takes you 30 minutes, and driving takes you a long time.
The meeting highlighting the similarities the two men shared. Despite being on opposite political teams, both leaders have ties to Queens that energize big voter bases to win upset victories in their elections. They're also both known for strong social media presences which fueled their campaigns. The big questions tonight, where do Trump and Mamdani go from here? Will they work together, or will the honeymoon phase fizzle out? We have an all-star cast of reporters and political minds to break down this meeting tonight. Look at this here. Garrett Hake, NBC News New York reporter, Andrew Sif are at the White House, both there tag teaming that. We're also joined by my good friend Katie Honan, a reporter at the City Paper, who also closely followed this campaign, and former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, another friend to Top Story as well. We thank you all for being here. Garrett, I'm going to start you up because you were the first in that four box. The way this meeting played out, right, was definitely a surprise for many, but it was very sort of Trumpian, if you will. What did we learn, and what happened behind closed doors?
Yeah, look, I think there were always two possibilities for this meeting. Both involved fireworks. Either these two men were going to butt heads publicly and pick up where they left off on the campaign trails, or we were going to see what we saw here today. Two people who consider themselves to be master communicators and at least see themselves to some degree as the ones who want to kind of chart the way politically for their parties, trying to do exactly that. The president, I'm told by a couple of people who were in that meeting, really does have genuine respect for Mamdani. He was speaking positively about him all week this week leading up to this meeting, and came away genuinely impressed with his seriousness in the Oval Office and also with his communication skills and the attention that's paid to him, Tom. And I think that was kind of the icebreaker here. You heard it from Trump. If you're listening closely, one of the comments he made during this meeting was, look at all the press who's here to cover this, all the reporters who were gathered out here on the driveway today. That's the kind of thing that gets the president's attention. It's the thing that makes him stand up and respect somebody. And I think you saw that play out across the length of this meeting today.
Yeah, Andrew, we saw and played so many of those insults that these men have traded over the last few months. Communist, fascist, and now this. You spoke to Mamdani before he left New York for this meeting. What was his thinking here?
Absolutely, Tom. He was preparing for anything. I asked him if he thought this might be an ambush along the lines of when President Zelensky was in the Oval Office. And to that end, Mamdani had practice sessions, essentially speaking with Governor Kathy Hochul, Senator Chuck Schumer. He spoke with Hakeem Jeffries. He even spoke with the Reverend Al Sharpton, people who had met with and spoken with President Trump many, many times. So he was ready for anything. That's what he told us. I'm not sure he was ready for this. I'm not sure he was ready to be praised this much for almost a half an hour nonstop in front of a bank of reporters and in front of cameras broadcast around the world. So he went in with this preparation for the possibility it would be a battle and a fight. And I don't think even Mamdani expected the president to single out his achievements the way he did. On the other hand, it's also worth pointing out the political benefit of the president embracing something that voters just saw on Election Day was a successful issue, and that's embracing affordability.
It's a good point there, Andrew. Mayor de Blasio, you actually got a shout out today in the meeting from President Trump today. Here's that moment.
Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
So, Mayor, when you first met with President Trump after his first election, you described the meeting as, quote, respectful and candid. Clearly, that relationship devolved. Give us a reality check here. How long does this new calm in the relationship last between Trump and Mamdani?
Not long. I think the reality is, Tom, that right now, this was Donald Trump trying to deflect attention from the Epstein files and, his sinking poll numbers and all the other challenges he's got. It was not about love of New York City. I do think there's a part of Trump that does care about New York City. I did see that at times, particularly during the COVID crisis, when I worked with him and his team. There were times when he actually did seem concerned for New York City. But right now, he's concerned for his own political circumstance. This spectacle worked for him. But for Mamdani, the smart thing, I think he handled it right, was try to build a little rapport, try to take the edge off. It's now going to be, I think, a little harder for Trump to do some of the extreme things he might have been thinking about for New York City. But, Tom, with Trump, we learned a long time ago, he will flip on you on a dime.
Yeah.
And the first time they disagree, expect him to start the threats up again.
Katie, so many Mamdani supporters, right, hate Trump. It's one of the reasons why they elected him. How do you think those supporters are going to interpret this meeting?
I think the mayor-elect's been very forthcoming about what he wants to do in D.C. in meeting with President Trump. He said he'll meet with anyone, anywhere, if it means that New Yorkers can get the help that they need. And he's been really upfront about that. And you even saw today in the meeting, he wasn't bending the knee to Trump's will about things like immigration enforcement and other things that they differ on. Look, you even see the president admitting that, yeah, I'm a fascist, just let him say that, I'm fine with that. So in some ways, it almost looked like President Trump was bending the knee briefly to Mamdani. Of course, as the former mayor points out, we don't know how long that will last, and the president is notoriously fickle about certain things. But look, I think Zohran Mamdani, he was elected on a mandate on affordability. That's what people, whether they voted for him or, as he points out, a lot of Trump supporters from 2024 flipped to him for the mayoral race. They care about affordability because the cost in New York City, it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah, Garrett, what do you think was at play here in President Trump's head, right? We heard a little bit about what Mayor de Blasio thought maybe was at play here. He is facing some tough headwinds right now. But, the president does need a foil, and this is a perfect foil for him. He was even calling him his little communist. He already gave him a nickname. What do you think Trump wanted out of this meeting, besides, obviously, the press that he's getting right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the press and attention is a big part of it. I think almost all of this is personal, Tom, because I can't make the politics make sense. I mean, Republicans have spent the last month demonizing Zohran Mamdani. They're trying to turn him into a new Nancy Pelosi, a scary coastal liberal who's going to come to every district and state around the country and pull the rug out from under, thoughtful people around the country, right? They wanted to make him a boogeyman. The president just completely undid that argument by making him sound like a reasonable, serious person who any Republican, including himself, could do business with. I think this was personal for a president who does still care, or at least take great interest in New York City, and also trying to essentially attach himself to some degree to another big story, another big winner, another big attention getter. I do agree with the mayor, though. I think this could be short-lived. The same kind of freewheeling ability to pivot on a dime and take advantage of the political headwinds here for President Trump doesn't suddenly go away when he sees an opportunity to throw Zohran Mamdani under the proverbial free New York City bus.
Andrew, is there anything that Mamdani can give to President Trump? And what I mean by that is that in nightly news earlier tonight, I was talking to Garrett about this. The president was asked, would you move back to New York? Could you live in New York City under Mamdani? He said, absolutely. But to remind viewers, the president left Trump Tower to Mar-a-Lago because he said city and state leaders were not treating him right. There were also subpoenas coming, lawsuits were coming. Is that sort of era of going after Trump over in New York?
Probably not. I mean, Kathy Hochul, the governor, issued a statement saying essentially, yes, she also would work with the president as long as it's focused on helping New Yorkers. But the moment that changes, she'll fight like hell. And that approach is what has been popular. I referenced the elections before, Tom, and you know that after affordability, a lot of voters talked about wanting candidates who would stand up to Trump. And so that remains a delicate issue in New York, where the president is not popular in the city. Yes, he did better in the last election than the time before. But again, he's not popular in New York City. And I think perhaps what he can get from Mamdani is a return to one of the things that got him elected in the first place, which is that focus on affordability. That was a lost thread amid tariffs and rising prices and a struggling economy. And maybe since Mamdani rode it to success 2 weeks ago, the president can get some of that magic shine back.
Mayor, one of the knocks on Mamdani is that he's a young guy. He doesn't have a whole lot of experience. He's sort of new to the game. He is on a very big stage right now. Was there a part of you watching this going, be careful, don't take the bait? You just took the bait.
No, I was watching as a supporter of Mamdani with concern that Trump would do what he often does and just turn on someone suddenly. And I thought that would be a tough and uncomfortable moment. But one of the things we've seen about Mamdani is incredibly self-possessed. He's very clear about who he is, what he believes in. And I know he also prepares carefully for everything. So I had no doubt that he knew Trump might try and switch up on him and was ready. The cool thing here, I think, from the perspective of all those of us who believe in Mamdani, is he got the better of this. Mamdani showed that he was willing to be reasonable. He was willing to go anywhere to get something done for New York City. Trump is the one who actually looks weak right now. And Mamdani has no illusions because he's set a very clear tone. He'll fight Trump when he has to on behalf of New Yorkers. I think in the end, it was a very good day for Mamdani. It was not such a great day for Trump. He distracted from Epstein, but he also looked weak in the process. And that's something Donald Trump goes to a lot of trouble to avoid. Today, he didn't manage to do that.
I think some might take issue with the optics on that last point, right? The president was sitting, Mamdani was standing up. It almost seemed like he sort of felt sorry for him a little bit, for Mamdani. Katie, as I'm watching this, I'm also thinking of like WWF and there's great battles and then there's friendships and then there's great battles again. And we know the president is a fan of that kind of stuff. What could be the next big battle between these two men?
I'm thinking immigration enforcement. Borders our Tom Homan said there's going to be ramped up immigration enforcement in New York City. We'll see who the heel might be in this kind of wrestling battle. But as for today, I think all of the people who doubted Mamdani's skill when it comes to dealing with the president, were taught a lesson that, he actually has that ability to meet with Trump. We'll see how long it lasts, but I think it's going to be immigration.
Yeah. Katie, Garrett, Andrew, Mayor de Blasio, we thank you all for being here on this really action-packed top story tonight on this Friday. You can hear much more from New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani in an exclusive interview on Meet the Press with our good friend Kristen Welker this Sunday. Make sure to tune in. Okay, next tonight, the president defending his claims that some Democratic lawmakers should be tried for sedition, even floating the death penalty, after they put out a video telling troops to disobey any illegal orders. Now those lawmakers say they need full-time security. Here's Ryan Nobles.
The laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
Tonight, President Trump defending his suggestion that 6 Democratic lawmakers who put out this video telling troops they could disobey illegal orders were guilty of seditious behavior, punishable by death.
I'm not threatening death, but I think they're in serious trouble. In the old days, it was death. If I ever said that and there were a Democrat as president, all hell would have broken loose.
Tonight, some of those Democrats telling us they now need 24/7 security.
No one should be happy when we're threatening violence against people who we just don't agree with.
Are you getting more threats now as a result of this?
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting more threats. When the President of the United States tweets out death threats and says the things that he says, that stirs things up a lot.
But Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth calling the Democratic video Stage 4 Trump derangement syndrome. The White House says it sends a dangerous message to troops. Trump allies blasting the video.
That's BS. They knew what they were doing. They created a political stunt to get a response, and they didn't like the response.
But some Republicans criticizing both Democrats and
You think the president should have done different?
I mean, that rhetoric is not acceptable.
Okay, Ryan joins us now on Capitol Hill. Ryan, I was thinking about this, right? I was like, the politics here. Who actually does this help? Because it sort of helps both sides, right? President Trump and his campaign made a lot of arguments about D.C. and the swamp and what was happening there. This sort of feeds some of those arguments. But for the Democrats, it shows them standing up to the president. So politically speaking, who's on top here?
Yeah, you like the fact that your party is calling out Democrats, reminding them that Donald Trump is still the commander-in-chief, and also pushing back on this idea that he is handing down any sort of an illegal order. But if you're a Democrat and you're concerned about the way that the administration is using the military, whether it be the situation in South America or the fact that they're sending National Guard troops into American cities, sometimes against the requests of local leadership, then you start to appreciate the fact that those lawmakers are standing up to the White House. But there is no doubt, Tom, this middle ground. You saw Congressman Kiley there of California, a Republican who said, I don't like the way either side is handling this. And as a result, you're getting strong opinions from just about everyone here in Washington. Tom.
Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill for us. Ryan, good to see you. Turning now to the Russia-Ukraine war. President Trump urging Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to accept a U.S.-crafted peace plan by Thanksgiving. That proposal containing some major concessions for Ukraine. And Zelensky tonight saying the country faces one of the most difficult moments in their history. Here's Keir Simmons.
Ukraine tonight under more pressure from Russia's unrelenting onslaught. And now President Zelensky facing President Trump's deadline for an answer on a new U.S. peace proposal by Thanksgiving.
We think we have a way of getting peace. He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess.
U.S. officials say the 28-point plan gives Ukraine something it's seeking, a U.S.-backed security guarantee based on NATO's Article 5 if Russia were to attack again. But it also asks Ukraine to make major concessions, including ruling out joining NATO, reducing its army, and handing territory to Russia that it has not lost.
They got to give up some land that they have not lost in the war.
They will lose in a short period of time. They're losing land. It's a bloodbath.
Russia, which invaded Ukraine, is asked to concede little. Ukraine's President Zelensky calling it a difficult moment in an emergency address, Now Ukraine may find itself facing a very difficult choice, either loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner, he said. Russia's President Putin says he has seen the plan and is ready to resolve issues peacefully, but the Russian leader, who this week appeared in military fatigues, also threatening to achieve his objectives through armed struggle. There's a flurry of diplomacy. Zelensky holding an emergency call with European leaders and a call with Vice President Vance, saying Ukraine views every realistic plan positively. Tom?
All right, Keir Simmons first. Keir, thank you. Back here at home, we are tracking a cross-country storm that could disrupt your Thanksgiving travel. Tens of millions heading home for the holiday could see significant delays at the airport and on the roads. Nearly 82 million Americans are expected to travel more than 50 miles away from home, according to AAA. The FAA saying it will be the busiest Thanksgiving in 15 years. Let's get right to NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, you were telling us earlier there is a change in the forecast.
Yeah, especially right before Thanksgiving for the East Coast. We'll get to that in a second. The storm, the culprit for all of our worries over the next week, is spinning here just south of Los Angeles, bringing some heavy rain into areas that don't typically get a lot of heavy rain, from Yuma, Lake Havasu City, right on the border here of Arizona and California. And we still have a flood watch. We haven't had any flash flooding, but we still could see isolated problems as we head into the evening hours. As far as the storm goes, over the weekend, Sunday it starts to get a little bit stronger as it moves through New Mexico. By the time we get to Monday, it's heading out into areas of Oklahoma and Texas. These are regions that got a lot of heavy rain over the last 2 days. The rivers are high, ground is saturated, so we are going to see a flash flood threat. This is probably our worst travel period. Anyone heading out of Texas into areas of Arkansas, and maybe 3 to 6 inches of rain. In some areas, as we said, already picked up about 2 to 4 inches in the last day or two. By the time we get to Sunday, I think the airport, Dallas-Fort Worth, is fine. Early in the day, late in the day is when some of that rain will be arriving. As far as driving goes, heading out on Interstate 20 and 40, going from areas of Colorado and New Mexico into Texas will be problematic. And then our busiest travel day is Wednesday, and that's time when we expect the change. The East Coast was looking rainy. Now just showers. I think we're going to be okay.
Okay, we'll take it. Bill, we thank you for that. We're back in a moment with the grizzly bear charging a group of students and teachers on a hike, how they escaped alive. Plus, the new warning about lung cancer, why doctors say more young women are being diagnosed without ever smoking. And the stunning rescue caught on camera, police tracking down a man with dementia after he went missing in the woods for days. How they finally found him, coming up. We're back down with a dramatic rescue caught on camera. Police using heat-sensing drones to locate an 86-year-old man with dementia who had been missing for nearly 4 days in the wilderness. Here's NBC's George Solis with the incredible video.
We got you. He's alive. He's alive.
This dramatic body cam video moment, 86-year-old Donald Keaton was found alive.
Donald, you all right, bud?
After nearly 4 days missing in the wilderness near Vero Beach, Florida.
You got water at all?
For 80 hours, law enforcement searched for him by ground.
Donald, do you hear me?
And air.
I see him moving, so it was like...
Keaton, who has dementia and Parkinson's disease, eventually found under mud and a patch of palms.
All right, we got you, okay?
Authorities say Keaton was breaking them to try and get himself out of a hole he'd fallen into.
I got EMS coming for you, okay?
That movement, just enough for a drone pilot to pick up his heat signature.
All right, you made it. Great job.
Without this technology, he would not be alive today.
Keaton's wife, Joyce, says they were staying at an RV park when Donald told her he was going for a walk.
We got you.
Keaton now dealing with cuts and bug bites, but he's expected to make a full recovery.
I just want to thank all of you for bringing my husband back home.
Joyce says her husband never gave up hope.
He started praying, and that's what the prayers from all over the country, basically, because we have friends in all different places, but the prayers is what saved him.
Yeah, George, this is an incredible story, and that video helped out so much. What more do we know about sort of the resources that were used to find him?
Yeah, there was a great number of them. You had helicopters, you had canines, you had officers on ATVs. You saw many of them were there on the ground. Those drone pilots, though, up in the air 26 hours when they spotted him in that thick brush. Again, a needle in a haystack. Authorities there saying it was nothing short of a miracle, Tom.
It really is. All right, George, we thank you. Now to that terrifying incident in Canada, a grizzly bear attacking students and their teachers out on a hike. Tonight, authorities say that bear is still on the loose. NBC's Morgan Chesky has more.
A dramatic scene outside a Canadian hospital. Ambulances lined up. A heartbroken Indigenous community showing support following a bear attack on elementary school children during a hike.
I want to thank the teachers for their heroism, their early accounts of their willingness to confront this vicious animal.
The attack happened on a walking trail in the Newhawk Nation community of Bella Coola, roughly 250 miles northwest of Vancouver. Officials say the group was resting Thursday afternoon when the grizzly rushed in.
Teachers put themselves in harm's way to protect the children. They successfully repelled bear spray and used bear spray and bear bangers to ward off the bear.
That device, called a bear banger, using a non-lethal cartridge.
Let it go.
To scare animals with a bang. It worked, letting students escape and launching a massive search for the bear. It's the latest in a string of frightening bear encounters. In Pennsylvania, a 300-pound black bear jumped over a counter after chasing a boy inside a store. While on Wednesday, authorities say another black bear left a Nevada couple scratched up after it broke inside looking for food. And tonight in Canada, with the bear's whereabouts still unknown, authorities say officers are armed and they're telling residents to stay indoors and not walk anywhere. Tom?
Okay, Morgan Chesky for us. Okay, coming up tonight, Bill and Hillary Clinton called to testify in the Epstein probe when the former president and former Secretary of State are being called for questioning. Plus, the potential deal that could shake up the entertainment industry. What we're learning tonight about who's in the mix to take over Warner Brothers Discovery. We are back now with Top Stories Health Check and the troubling rise in lung cancer rates for younger women who don't smoke. Here's NBC's Maggie Vespa.
An active Chicago mother in her mid-40s, Danielle Hoig, was stunned.
Did you ever think that you were someone who could get lung cancer?
No, never.
Early last year, this scan showing this white mass proved her wrong.
I thought, well, no way do I have lung cancer because I don't smoke.
Her doctor delivering a second blow.
He said to me, it does look like cancer. And oh, by the way, you're not the first young female I've seen today that has lung cancer.
Doctors we spoke with from around the country say they're seeing more young women like Danielle with no history of tobacco use diagnosed with lung cancer. And a new study from Northwestern Medicine shows 65% of people diagnosed with lung cancer today don't qualify for regular screenings that could have caught the disease sooner. That's because current screening guidelines only cover adults 50 to 80 years old who've smoked the equivalent of a pack a day for 20 years. Among those diagnosed too late, Northwestern researchers say more younger non-smokers, the majority women.
They're like, what did I do wrong? I've not smoked. I've never had alcohol. I eat healthy. I exercise. I have stage 4 lung cancer.
Chief of Thoracic Surgery, Dr. Ankit Bharat.
Do we know why lung cancer rates are on the rise among younger women who have never smoked? Do we know why this is happening?
Well, we actually don't right now.
Dr. Bharat says the culprit could be environmental factors like air pollution or things more commonly inhaled by women like cosmetics, aerosols, gas stoves, or cleaning products. But none of that is proven. What is known, lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths nationwide. To show how simple screenings are, Northwestern's team scanned me, a 37-year-old non-smoker with a family history of lung disease. The CT scan took less than 5 minutes.
We are looking at the right lung right here. This is your left lung.
With results minutes later.
I don't see any sign of lung cancer.
No signs of lung cancer.
There's no spots, no evidence of lung cancer.
Dr. Bharat is now calling to change the screening guidelines to include all adults 40 to 85. Hoig, whose cancer was caught early by an unrelated scan and treated, still wonders why her.
I could have died and my children would have been without their mom. Really, anyone can get it.
Maggie Vespa, NBC News, Chicago.
All right, we thank Maggie for that one. Now to Top Stories Newsfeed, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee calling for in-person depositions from former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It's all related to the committee's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Republican Congressman James Comer says the depositions are scheduled for mid-December. We reached out to the Clintons for comment but have not heard back. And Grammy-winning rapper Pras from the Fugees sentenced to 14 years in prison. A federal jury convicted him of illegally funneling millions of dollars in foreign contributions to former President Obama's re-election campaign in 2012. Now, Pras' attorney says he plans to appeal both the conviction and the sentence. And it's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's a 1939 Superman comic book that just sold for a record-setting price tag at auction. More than $9 million. Can you believe it? That makes it the most expensive comic book ever sold at auction. Here you can see the copy of what it looks like. Three brothers in California reportedly found it last year while cleaning out their late mother's attic. What a find. Okay, next tonight, the iconic Hollywood studio now up for sale. You probably know Warner Brothers from this water tower logo at the start of their movies. But as soon as next year, that iconic water tower could bear a new logo. Take a look as Paramount, Skydance, Comcast, the parent company, of course, of NBC News, and Netflix submit their bids to purchase the company. This, according to Reuters. What's for sale? Well, in addition to the film studio, are big assets like DC Studios and HBO Max. Also up for grabs, legacy cable channels, including CNN, TNT, and Discovery Channel. So here to break it all down, Hollywood insider and Puck News founder Matt Bellany. Matt, so great to have you on Top Story tonight. Before we get into this, do you have any news for our viewers?
About what's going on? Well, we know that the three bidders that we thought would be bidding for this company are actually bidders now. The bids were submitted yesterday, and it's Comcast, Netflix, and Paramount, the three suitors. There may be more that we don't know about, but right now, those are the three that could get this asset.
Yeah, Matt, you know, this is a juicy Hollywood story. You've been all over this, right? But our viewers may not know this as well. Let's start with the man at the middle of this sale, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav. He's a big name in Hollywood. Some people know him as Zaz. He started at Discovery, actually even before that, at NBC, and was behind their merger with Warner Brothers 3 years ago. What's he looking for in this deal?
Well, he wants a way out. I mean, this entire transaction that created this company was because David Zaslav was running a television company, Discovery Communications, down, down, down because of the cable model. The cable model is falling apart. So Warner Brothers and HBO was out there, put them all together, became Warner Brothers Discovery, and they thought that the combination might give them a little bit of size and scale to escape this moment. Turned out not to be the case. The economics are still going down, down, down. So now he has decided that he would prefer to split up this company, sell off the studio side and the streamer to one buyer, and keep the cable channels, which are going down, 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 separate for another buyer. But the problem with that is that there's a buyer out there right now, Paramount, that wants to buy the entire company. So right now, it's Paramount that wants to buy all of the assets, and then Netflix and Comcast that really just want the studio and HBO Max.
Let's talk about Paramount right now. The big name involved there, of course, one of the richest people in the world, Larry Ellis, and his son David is the new company CEO. And veteran media exec Jeff Shell is running Paramount right now. This is a team with Hollywood connections and also close ties to President Trump. What's sort of their offer here? Why would Warner Brothers want to sell to them?
Well, it's a check, right? Pretty large check from one of the richest people in the world. Now, he may bring in partners. We've heard some rumors about some Middle Eastern funds. But the value of going with Paramount is they are willing to put up a small fortune for this. It's about $60 billion we think this could go for. And they say, we want it all, the good stuff, the bad stuff. The other suitors, they only want the good stuff. They want Warner Brothers and they want HBO Max. So that is going to be an entirely different process. And it's going to leave Warner's with this other side, the cable companies that are not great businesses, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with that. Now, Zaslav thinks they have a plan for that. They can spin them off. They have a management plan for that. But the value of going with someone like the Ellisons is that they want it all, and they feel that the Trump administration is friendlier to them, and the government will bless that deal.
Jeff Shell sticks around if that's the deal, and David Zaslav. You have two sort of, I don't know, media moguls, if you will, both in there, or does somebody have to leave?
I think Zaslav would get a role at the new company. They've talked about potentially calling him co-CEO, but I've joked that, he'll be in charge of the Hamptons office because I don't think he'll have any real say over the direction of the company, even if he has a big title. That would just be an offer to him to stick around, get a big paycheck, call himself a mogul, and stay with the company for a little bit. For all intents and purposes, David Ellison will be in charge of that company.
So Netflix, right? I want to talk about this because they have a market cap somewhere around $450 billion. You compare that to Paramount, right? Or even Warner Brothers, which is at $57 billion. Paramount's even smaller than that, from what I understand, somewhere around under $20 billion. Netflix is the Goliath here. They have the money. Maybe it's going to be in stock, right? But can't they just go in there and take it if they want it?
Well, they can certainly outbid others without going to other financiers and partners, but they have regulatory problems. Netflix is considered the leader in subscription streaming. They fight with YouTube for dominance there. So combining HBO Max with the dominant streamer would put alarm bells off in Washington. Yeah. And already some Republicans have voiced opposition to Netflix buying Warner's.
Comcast is the dark horse here. NBC, of course, the mothership of this fine show here, and NBC News. Talk to me about that. Is there a shot or a chance for Comcast?
I think there is. They have the same regulatory problem as Paramount would, in the sense that they would be combining two legacy studios, Warner Brothers and Universal Studios. The difference is that Peacock is not a player, or it's not a dominant player in streaming. So you can make the argument that they need to combine with HBO Max in order to be competitive there. The problem for NBC and NBC Universal is that the Trump administration has been pretty hostile to the company because of its ownership of MSNBC, and the Roberts family, which controls Comcast, is considered not a friend of the Trumps, unlike the Ellisons. So as with everything here, politics is a factor.
Matt Bellany, you can read his byline in Puck. I'm sure he's going to break some news in the days ahead. Matt, we thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, still ahead on Top Story, a woman sentenced to decades behind bars for her role in the murders of 3 tourists in Mexico. The new details tonight about the killings, plus the horrific crash at an air show in Dubai, a fighter jet exploding into a fireball after hitting the ground. The latest on what happened. That's next. We're back now with an update to a story we brought you last year. A 23-year-old woman sentenced to 2 decades in prison for her role in the deaths of 2 Australian brothers and their American friend on a surf trip in Mexico. The Attorney General says she is the one who encouraged the other suspects to steal the men's phones and truck tires. NBC's Dana Griffin has more.
Tonight, a woman sentenced to 20 years in prison for her role in the murder of 3 tourists while in Mexico, according to the Mexican Attorney General. The AG saying 23-year-old Ari Giselle pleaded guilty to the armed robbery and inciting vehicle theft prior to last year's deadly assault on American Carter Road and Australian brothers Jake and Callum Robinson. The 3 men had been on a surfing trip when they were carjacked, according to prosecutors, targeted for their phone and tires. The Attorney General's office saying Giselle at one point coming into contact with the 3 surfers and tipping off the other suspects that they were carrying valuables. Days later, one of the 4 suspects was found with a victim's cell phone, according to the chief state prosecutor. The other 3 men involved are in custody and facing charges for homicide. The bodies of the surfers were found in a remote well about 50 feet deep, 4 miles from where they were killed. The medical examiner saying they died from gunshot wounds to the head, adding that they likely had been dead for 5 to 7 days before they were found. Mexican investigators at the time seen combing through evidence, finding blood, bullet casings, and drag marks near the men's campground, along with the badly burned white pickup truck. The local attorney general saying there were signs the men tried to fight back. The case capturing international attention. Jake and Callum's parents traveling to Baja California last year to take their boys home.
Our hearts are broken and the world has become a darker place for us. They were young men enjoying their passion of surfing together. We know that they were truly loved and impacted many people's lives.
Dana Griffin, NBC News.
Now to Top Stories Global Watch, starting with a deadly plane crash at an air show in Dubai. Here you see the Indian fighter jet performing a stunt before slamming to the ground, erupting into that ball of fire and smoke. The crowds of spectators left horrified. Indian Air Force officials confirming the pilot died in the crash. The cause is still under investigation. And after all the controversy surrounding this year's Miss Universe pageant, Miss Mexico was just crowned the winner. Her name is Fatima Bosch Fernandez. You might remember the pageant's co-owner publicly scolded her earlier this month, leading several contestants to walk out. He later apologized, but soon after, 2 judges resigned, with one of them accusing organizers of rigging the competition, which the organization denies. Archaeologists in Hungary lifting the lid on a Roman sarcophagus from around 1700 years ago. Here's what they found. Inside, a complete skeleton, believed to be of a young woman. There were also glass vases, jewelry, and coins. They say everything was incredibly well preserved, which is rare because most of these tombs, you may remember, have been raided by looters over these centuries. Researchers now trying to learn more about the woman and who she was. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. That does it for us tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.